Hello everyone and welcome back to Superboy Beyond, and we've had a few weeks of Superboy related content. We've had a Lois and Clark Christmas special that we did as our main Christmas release, which should have been released the Saturday before Christmas, so fingers crossed. We're not returning back to Superboy just yet. We're going to go back into the Ruby Spears Superman animated series, and this is a notable episode because it's an episode that has another DC superhero in it. And unlike the majority of the time when they would have Superman crossover with another character, I mean, you know, it's tempting just to go Batman. But no, this time they went Wonder Woman. So, this is Ruby Spears, episode 8, Wonder Woman versus the Sorcerers of Time. And there's also a Young Clark family album thing.
The birthday party.
Yeah. So if this is your first time watching one of our commentaries, it's not like a typical YouTube reaction video. You're not going to see or hear the actual episode itself. You will see a very heavily filtered version up there in the middle, but that's purely so you can keep in time with us. You know, somebody knocks at the door, phone rings, whatever. It lets you get back in sync with us. So, get your copy of the show ready. This is season 1, episode 8, although I guess I don't need to say season 1 because it's the only season. Episode 8, Ruby Spears, Superman, in 3, 2, 1, play. So, been waiting to get to this one for a while, just purely because as I saw the episode list, like this one has Wonder Woman in the title, so it was obvious which episode this was.
Yes, and this is definitely the post-crisis 1986 George Perez design on Wonder Woman, because prior to the crisis, Hippolyta had blonde hair. Here she has black hair.
Okay. What costume is she in? Is it one of the versions where she had like pants on the suit, or is it like a classic Wonder Woman suit?
This is the classic suit that George Perez tweaked.
Fantastic.
When he did it.
Have we already gone past the episode where Superman fights King Kong? I forget.
They never did the an episode with his King Kong-esque villain, which is Titano. They just had him in the opening credits.
I guess they must have been planning to get there eventually, but maybe they were taking the old comic book thing where put a monkey on the cover, you'll sell twice as many issues.
Could be. So now we've got a ceremony on Paradise Island.
So Hippolyta with black hair.
Yep, and she's passing over guardianship of this sphere from herself to Diana, because this evil sorceress Cyrene had once tried to use the globe of darkness, which is in this box. In the meantime, we've got a comet coming straight through the sky.
He's not going to lose his memories, is he?
No, he's just gonna stop it.
I guess this version of Superman is slightly stronger than George Reeves or Gerard Christopher or
Yeah. Well, it's not a meteorite, it's just a comet. So and of course one of the debris releases Cyrene. And look at that hair she's got.
Yeah. Of all the 80s hair to ever exist, I think that's probably the most 80s. Yep. I'd love to see it in live action. It's like Darla's hair in Darla Goes Ballistic turned up to 11.
Yeah. More like 15. Now, Cyrene kind of is their way of doing the classic Wonder Woman foe of Cersei without actually doing Cersei.
I wonder if Cersei is a character they just didn't have the rights to use for whatever reason. I'm not familiar with this character. Were they in the comics? I'm not a huge Wonder Woman fan, to be honest.
Cersei was, Cyrene was not.
I know, yeah, obviously Cersei,
But if you've noticed, she's kind of turning them almost into pig people. It's essentially Cersei that they're doing. The voice of Cyrene is done by B.J. Ward, who was the last voice of Wonder Woman on the Super Friends when it became the Superpowers team.
Nice bit of legacy casting there.
Yep. And the voice of Wonder Woman is Mary McDonnell Lewis, who is very famous for having done the voice of Lady J on G.I. Joe.
Not something that I really watched as a kid. We didn't even have G.I. Joe toys in the UK. Like, we had Action Man, which was basically the same thing, just repackaged.
Yeah.
But we had there was an Action Man animated series, and it had nothing to do with G.I. Joe. So it's funny how the G.I. Joe toys have had completely unrelated animated shows. So yeah, a couple of are they griffins? I don't know my mythological beasts.
Yep, griffins. And now, of course, she has to have her little henchman to talk to. So she recreates Imp.
It's funny, just hearing the little henchman's voice. All I can think of is Andy Serkis as Gollum.
Though whoever they had for him would have been perfect if they'd gotten to Mr. Mix's Pitlick.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And now we've got the standard Lois and Superman flying.
It's funny how Lois in this show basically has the Terry Hatcher Lois Lane haircut before Terry Hatcher.
Yeah, and
it's only just dawned on me.
And she's essentially wearing one of Margot Kidder's outfits. So she's a throwback and a vision forward. So now Wonder Woman's explaining to Superman what's going on.
No. It is interesting how I'm assuming this show, I've probably just missed over a line of dialogue, but I'm guessing that this show is basically saying like they were already aware of each other. It didn't show us like their first meeting. They're meeting and they're just already friends.
Yeah, he did mention to her when she shows up in Lois's apartment. It's been a long time.
Oh, so they've had interactions in the past.
Yes,
that's fun. That is one thing that I like about this show. Like, they did basically hit the ground running.
Yeah, the closest we got to any kind of origins or anything was, the final episode of the series, which is called "It's Superman," which is one of the Kent family albums.
That's a fun way to end the family album series. End it with his first appearance as Superman.
Yep.
It's funny because the Kent family album is almost a great framing device for any Superman story you want to tell, because Ma Kent is saving all the newspaper clippings, all that stuff. You could literally set an entire show around Ma just telling Clark's stories to the grandkids or something in the future.
Yep. And in fact, it was established in one of the episodes that she was making an album of his exploits.
I'm trying to remember if there was a photo album in Lois and Clark. I have a vague feeling that there was an episode where I think someone was trying to prove that Clark Kent was Superman, and part of the proof was Mark Kent's family photo album or something. I don't
Yeah.
remember. Maybe my memory is just making that up now, but I was sure that was a thing. Maybe it's not though.
So now Clark is disappearing because he has to help Wonder Woman, and he's giving his work to Lois.
How haven't they realized that guy is a demon? He's got literal horns growing out of his skull.
Well, you have to look at it this way, Tom. You know, in Metropolis, there monsters like this are appearing all the time, so they've become kind of, you know, jaded.
Yeah,
Like,
I guess.
oh, it's a guy with horns. Big deal.
Yeah, I suppose.
Nothing surprises anybody in Metropolis anymore.
I'd still question who he is though, because surely you would know if the Daily Planet has just hired a demon.
Yeah. It would have been better if when creating the business suit on him, Cyrene's magic had altered his face so that he looked human.
Or just put like a hat on him or something. Just put it like a nice smart hat on him, like a bowler or something.
Yeah.
Or a fedora or a trilby or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And of course, now we find out why Cyrene has kidnapped Lois. She's trying to get Superman and Wonder Woman out of hiding.
It's funny, when I look at Superman in this show, I'm trying to work out which Superman actor they remind me of most. There's moments where he looks like Reeve, but then every now and then there's a moment where I think he actually looks a bit more like George Reeves or Kirk Allen. But I guess it's just generic Superman, like based on the comics more than anything.
Yeah, I think the majority of it that they were using for the design was definitely Chris Reeve.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they used his theme tune and all of that, didn't they?
Yeah. See, nobody really even reacted to the fact that Superman just flew through the lobby of the hotel.
It's funny how bracelet things are like dark blue in this. For some reason I always just picture them as being more gold, but maybe that's just because the movies have clouded my memory.
Yeah, at this time in the comics, the way George Perez drew them, they were dark.
It's obviously just my more modern designs that I am thinking of,
Yeah.
clouding my memory. I know I say this for every Ruby Spears as well, but I just so appreciate that they actually included the yellow S on the cape. Considering the budget must not have been, it can't have been wonderful for this show, the budget.
Yeah.
But they managed to do an awful lot.
Yeah, and this was the last time in animation that we got the yellow S on the cape.
I think one of the more recent shows did it. Was it Justice League Action? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm fairly sure I've seen it done since. I know some of the DC animated movies included it.
Yeah, but this was the last regular time that it was done, because once we got Superman the Animated Series and then Justice League, gone.
Yeah.
And I get why Bruce Timm stated that they couldn't do the S on the cape. It would have cost so much money to animate every single cell with it.
I still think they could have got away with just adding a yellow triangle to the cape for a lot of shots,
Yeah.
Unless he's like right in front of the camera and it's like a close up. You don't need the full detail. You just need the yellow shape. That's it. Just a yellow diamond would have been enough. Like here, they have added the details to the yellow S, but I don't think they needed to. I think it would have been fine without.
But that and this is one of the reasons why Ruby Spears as an animated house was so good, because even when they didn't have to do something, they did it.
Yeah. And I do like all the character designs. Like so far, apart from I think the only character design I wasn't thrilled with was Zod. But that's just because he looks more like a park ranger than he did.
Yeah. But they were trying to go classic with it, and I think changing it from the purplish pink uniform that he had in the comics to a brown, it kind of works.
Yeah. Personally, I think they should just put him in a black jumpsuit like they did for the movies, They wouldn't have had to have even quite as many details, just a black version of a Superman suit. They probably could have even reused a lot of the character like model stuff, just replaced the head for a lot of shots. Same way they did with that Super Friends episode we watched. All they did was extend the ears on Batman's cowl and replace the colours, and that was basically it, wasn't it? They gave Robin a mustache.
And Aquaman an eye patch.
It is a fun trope, though. You go to an evil parallel universe. If they've got facial hair, that's how you know. It's like Spock with a goatee, although he turned around by the end.
Yeah. And that wasn't the only time that somebody has done that whole thing with the evil trope of having facial hair. Knight Rider, when they introduced the character of Garth Knight, who was basically the son of Wilton Knight and the face that Wilton used for Michael when he redid him, he had a goatee.
Yeah, there's a great NBC sitcom that ended a few years back called Community. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I've heard of it, but never watched it.
It's absolutely brilliant. I think you'd love it, actually. But there's a whole thing with the Darkest Timeline, and the only difference in that timeline is that the character Abed has a cutout black paper goatee that he tapes to his face. That's how you can tell he's evil Abed. It's great. But there's tons of Star Trek references in it, which is obviously what they were going for.
Yeah.
Like they have a room in their apartment in the show where it's literally, they call it the Dreamatorium, but when you open the door, it's literally just black walls with yellow tape as squares. It's literally just a holodeck.
Yeah. So, because Wonder Woman was given purpose to only be the one to open the box, Cyrene has just used her to open the box.
Indeed. Yeah, it's funny. I always picture Wonder Woman's gauntlets as being more metallic, but I guess blue works too. It fits the color scheme.
Yeah. And now she's created a giant hourglass that, as the sands go down, Superman and Wonder Woman cease to exist. Very Back to the Future, the way they're doing it.
Yeah. If it was me, if I noticed I was starting to fade out, I'd be like, right, get her into the crystal ball as quickly as possible, just in case there's a chance at the moment she's sealed in it, the spell just wears off.
Yep. But the only thing that's not affected is the lasso of truth.
I suppose because the lasso of truth wasn't hers to begin with, like it's something she was given later. I'm guessing it belonged to some Amazonian warrior from years
Well, it was
gone by
actually
or something.
created from the girdle of Gaia.
Was it?
And I think her mother used it at one time. So,
I just assumed it was one of those things, like a mythological sword or shield or whatever. It's just one of those things that the Amazons had that Wonder Woman used.
yeah.
But as I say, as I said earlier, I'm not the biggest Wonder Woman fan, so I don't know all that much about the character.
The little that I know about her could go on the head of a pin. The only problem that I have with this episode is the fact that he's actually standing on Paradise Island, and the
And
whole
they're not mad at him because men aren't allowed. Yeah.
Yeah, men are not allowed, and
I guess Superman is a special case. He just helped them deal with a massive problem that they had.
yeah,
I guess he's an exception.
yep. So now
So
we've got
anyway,
this.
we're back to the Kent family albums.
Yep, and this is the birthday party. And you're right. These are very much super baby stories.
Mm. I don't remember liking the last Kent family album one. I forget what actually even happened in it, but I just
Was
remember it
that the
being very
circus or Little Runaway?
Little Runaway. The
Yeah,
circus I liked. The circus had some fun sort of physical comedy moments as he's carrying the drinks. Like that I appreciated. I think it was the Runaway that I just wasn't a massive fan of. I thought it was a little bit boring.
yep. This one actually does have some comedy. I mean, he's using X-ray vision on every one of the presents to find out what he got.
Mm. Are his friends named in this? Like, is one of those Pete Ross?
Nope, no Pete. The only one that we know who will show up momentarily is Lana.
Well, at least Lana's there, I was hoping the redhead there was Pete Ross or something. I know Pete is not typically a redhead, but
Yeah,
animation, you've got creative license. He looks more like they've just reused Jimmy Olsen, really.
yeah. The only problem that I have with this birthday party episode, I mean, I know it's more fun to have an outdoor birthday party, but it's been firmly established in the comics that Superman arrived on February 29th, which is the middle of winter.
Yeah, it would be cold. I don't know what's winter even like in Kansas. Is it quite hot? I know it's obviously farmland mostly, so I would
Well,
assume it's.
it's the Midwest, and it is ice cold.
I guess in this universe, Clark arrives on a different date.
Yeah.
I'd love to know actually. I might look this up and see what dates this actually aired, because that might give a little bit of a clue as to when this is. Let's see. Ruby Spears. That's quite fun. He's using his X-ray vision.
Oh yeah. I think Jonathan's going to be a little upset with him about the hose. And this is one of the few Kent family albums that Jonathan doesn't appear at all.
I guess he's working or something. Right, this episode aired in November.
Yeah.
Early November, so it would still be pretty cold. Like, it wouldn't be as cold, but it would still be pretty freezing. Oh well. I think that was one of the better Kent Family Album ones. It had some fun moments of comedy. Clark being a little bit mischievous with his powers there at the end. Yeah, I think it was
Definitely.
fun.
Plus
Not my favorite of the Kent Family albums so far, but yeah, I like that one. That was a good one.
Plus, we got to see a young Lana Lang.
Yeah. Is that the only appearance Lana ever makes in this show?
No, there was the previous episode when he first starts school. Lana is there and she becomes friends with him.
Right.
But they miscolored her hair as blonde.
Maybe that's why I don't remember.
Then she
at least they fixed it for this one.
Yeah, she appears here. And then there's going to be another episode. The 2 episodes from now, when it's The Beast Beneath These Streets, the Kent Family album will be the first date. So he has his first date with Lana.
That's nice.
And then, let's see. Since I got the menu right here. Let's see. Then there's To Play or Not to Play. She doesn't appear at all in that one, I don't think. And then Night of the Living Shadows / The Graduation. She appears in that.
Right.
So she only has 4 appearances in all of the Kent Family albums.
Out of 13, that's not very many. You would think, showing stories of Clark growing up in Smallville, you'd think that would have happened a little bit more often.
Yeah.
But overall, that's fine. It wasn't a particularly long-running series. I guess if the show had been picked up for another season, she would have appeared again, assuming that they kept up with the family album things.
Yeah. And some years back in the very early 2000s, I actually, before Ruby Spears went out of business completely, I actually sent an email to them because they had the contact us option on the website, and I asked, is there what's going to happen with Superman, the animated series that you guys did? Is that ever going to get a release on VHS? Remember, it was the early 2000s, so. And I got a message back from them, and they actually did respond, and they said, unfortunately, that show is owned by Warner Brothers, so you'd have to speak to them about getting it released. We have nothing to do with it. And I went back and forth a little bit, and I asked, so why did it only last 13 episodes? And they said, well, the costs of licensing it from them were exorbitant.
I bet,
So
even though Superman the movie had failed, what is it? Was it 87 that Superman 4 came out and was just an utter bomb? Yeah, so it was like a year before like the Superman movies are kind of ended. Yeah, even with that, Superman was still a massive, great big character. Let's face it, Superman at this point was still more popular than any other DC character.
Yeah,
like Batman, let's face it, Michael Keaton's Batman would still be a year away at this point. So
actually, less than a year, is like 6 months away at this point. So
it probably would have already been shot by that point. They were likely just finishing up the visual effects and the music and all of that,
Yeah.
But let's face it, Warner Brothers, they put a lot of money into the marketing. If they hadn't have done that, who knows how popular the movie would have been. A lot of the hype around Batman 89 was manufactured by Warner Brothers. And it's just, it's one of those just absolutely genius pieces of marketing. Like Batmania was huge. And they knew that it had the potential because obviously it had happened years earlier with Adam West. So I guess Superman would have been an item that would have cost a lot of money to license back then. Whether it would still cost quite that much now, I guess would just depend on how well the next movie does. But I imagine it would be even more these days, like obviously adjusting for inflation and all of that as well. But yeah.
But I mean, this show is so it's almost as forgotten as Superboy, unfortunately.
Yeah, I remember the first time we did one of our commentaries on Ruby Spears. I think our comment was that it was something like, I have always considered myself to be a pretty massive Superman fan, but until this popped up in my subscriptions, I didn't even know this show had existed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine if it was true for them, it was true for a lot of people. And hey, if you're watching this now and it was you that left that comment, thank you. As you can see, we always remember our favorite comments.
Yep. And
yeah.
the thing is that this started just around the same time that Superboy did. And Superboy lasted 4 years, and this lasted 13 episodes.
I have to imagine that the Salkinds had a considerably better deal with Superboy, because I imagine Superboy would have been a cheaper thing to license than Superman. Yeah. Especially considering that obviously Ruby Spears had access to like any Superman villain that they wanted, you would think. Although obviously they've had to change a few bits here and there.
Yeah.
Presumably for that reason. But
yeah, and they did create some very memorable, new villains, like the Hunter from the last time we watched.
That was a fun episode, yeah. I liked his whole sort of transforming ability that he had. It was very similar to the villain from Hulk. I forget his name.
Absorbing Man.
Absorbing Man. That's it.
But he originally appeared in Thor first.
But then in the Hulk movie, they made the Absorbing Man Hulk's like Bruce Banner's father, which was a little bit strange. I still think the Ang Lee Hulk movie is better than people give it credit. It's a little bit long at times. The pacing can be a little bit dodgy, but I still think it's a fun movie, and I think they should be commended that they put so much focus on Bruce Banner, because it would have been so tempting just to make a movie with tons of destruction, especially back then, early 2000s, the peak of like filmmakers like Roland Emmerich and stuff like that. Like just making a Hulk disaster movie probably would have made a fortune,
Yeah.
I'd still watch it now, but I don't know. I think there's something to be said for stories like this, underrated superhero films.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we give this a score out of 10? I'd give this an 8, personally. I don't think it's quite an 8.5.
I would definitely give this an 8 as well. There's a few little wonky things here and there, but nothing too major. I mean, you pointed out, the little imp, he should have come in with a hat on if he's wearing a suit.
Something, Yeah, I mean, look at City on the Edge of Forever. They had Spock put on the hat to hide the tips of his ears. They could have done something like that. Just put a hat on him, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened when Kirk tried to explain the ears. The cop was looking at him like he was freaking crazy.
Yeah. Either way, 8 out of 10 for this episode. I think it's a perfectly respectable score. I'm not sure if it's my favorite episode yet. I vaguely remember enjoying the episode with Lex Luthor and the Great Wall of China slightly more.
Yep.
But this is a really great episode and really fun to see Wonder Woman.
We get one more appearance by Lex, and that's 2 episodes from now, and that's Night of the Living Shadows.
Okay. I'll look forward to that one. Did they bring in any other DC superheroes, or is Wonder Woman the only one?
Wonder Woman was the only one, but there is another time that Ruby Spears animated Superman and Wonder Woman, and it was around the same time. They did a commercial for the Boys and Girls Club, and not only did they use the designs from this, but they also got Bo Weaver and Mary McDonald Lewis to do the voices again.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Yep.
Oh, and I hope you all had a Merry Christmas.